Hello and welcome to this very special interview that we are holding to discuss a little bit about Lufthansa, its plans and beyond right here on this show. Let's welcome Alexander Schlaubitz, Vice President Global Marketing at Lufthansa. Alexander, many thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Lufthansa Runway to Success has garnered a huge audience both within the SME platform space as well as for the general viewer, because you have really spearheaded the spark, so to speak, as far as entrepreneurs are concerned in the country. And we've had a fantastic startup expo. For you, as you watch this experience, as you watch your market grow, your audience grow, how do you sort of regard how the journey has been so far as RTS is concerned?
I think it's been fantastic, and it's been such a growing platform for everybody involved. And I think that's exemplary of what entrepreneurs need to do. They need to start with hypotheses, and then they need to try in an agile way to see how do these actually work out and keep adapting. And I think that's what the platform has also done in a way. And it was a big hypothesis, if you will, to begin with, and it's become something that's so robust and that feels so unique and so valuable in so many ways. And you know, through the 50 years that we've been in the Indian marketplace, we've always tried to stay attuned to what is happening here in culture, in society, and in economics. And now we're finding that this is kind of something that sits right in the middle of that, because India is such a young country, it is such an entrepreneurial country, and there's so much ambition in this country, and to be able to kind of tap into that and participate and grow it, I think has given us so much joy.
So what's interesting is you tapped into it, you know, one might say exactly at the right point, because 7 years ago, the show has of course gone through its whole metamorphosis. That was really at the beginning of the cusp of the entrepreneurial wave as well. What made you confident at that point? Or were you sort of saying that, listen, let's just give it a shot, let's see where this takes us, and we'll take it from here?
We had some degree of confidence, but it also took a lot of luck. You know, I mean, I think, you know, again, this goes back to like, you have to have a hypothesis and then you need to hopefully validate it. We were lucky in that it really worked out, but I think it also worked out because we kept adjusting it and kept making it better. And I think that is the thing that has made it the success that it is now.
And of course, when you came in at the helm, you know, that was what, a little more than 3 years ago. That was when, you know, the entrepreneurial wave was really taking off, and you got to see firsthand. What was your impression when you came in? Were you, you know, a little doubtful of the quality of the entrepreneurs, and then when you saw what was on display, did you change your mind, or are you still sort of waiting judgment on that?
No, I think, you know, the initial phase confirmed a lot of the things that I had thought. And you know, as we've watched over the last couple of seasons, it has broadened a lot. It used to be a little bit more technically based, back office efficiency kind of based innovation that we would see, which I felt, yeah, that's kind of sort of how I had seen the world at that point in time. But it has so much diversified into service, into culinary entrepreneurial things. I mean, there's so many new aspects, and I think that has been the most exciting thing. So I think my perspective on entrepreneurship in India has just gotten enriched as a result of the last couple of years of exposure. And
it's been a learning for us as well, because ordinarily, or rather the mindset has been that Lufthansa has been this company which has been here in India, as you said, for 50 odd years. And, you know, talking about risk or risk strategies is not something one would have associated with the brand. But clearly this is an association which has brought in a whole new perspective as far as Lufthansa is concerned. Take us through what is this positioning that you are looking at embedding in the customer mindset?
Well, if I go back to the perception that you have on the company model, right? We're becoming one of the companies, like so many others, that have to be dual speed organizations, if you will. On the one hand, safety, security, precision is the absolute bedrock of the core of the company and of the brand, and that can never in any way be compromised. On the other hand, we're learning that there are certain spaces in which we have to take risks and we have to be agile. And marketing is one of those spaces in which we can do those things, and we need to do those things because that's the only way in which we can stay relevant in a vastly complex and fast-moving environment. And so this is one of the things that we have used as an opportunity to continue tapping into an insight and continue being relevant and being contextual to to this particular market. So we knew that in India, one of the perceptions of Germany was obviously, you know, we're precise, we're punctual, and some of those attributes. But we also wanted to make sure that Indians understood and got to know the other side of us, which is a very empathic, a warm-hearted brand that cares about people. And so we're trying to make sure that through the initiatives that we take, not just from a marketing perspective, but also from the experience that you have on a journey, that people understand in India, or that they appreciate how much we want to be part of the culture, you know. So we're taking on things on board, like culinary elements that are important
and that's
to
part
Indians,
of
right?
A very warm campaign, if one might say. It's really it evokes a strong degree of empathy, and of course non-stop use. So you're listening to the customer very closely while innovating constantly. Would you say that's been part of your strategy?
Yeah, that's correct. And you know, as we were saying earlier, interestingly enough, this campaign wasn't something that started something. This campaign was almost the result of something that had been happening in the Indian marketplace, because we had been listening to so much to Indian customers. We have added so many Indian elements to the core value proposition. We have Indian crew, we have Indian food. We try to build so many things into the overall product that people understand that we're trying to, or that we're actually the best of both worlds, if you will. And so the campaign, More Indian Than You Think, was really just kind of like an after the fact condensation and interesting kind of dramatization, if you will, of all of those elements.
Right, and that's interesting as well, because typically when we see global brands, a lot of their campaigns are simply replicas of what they're running on a global footprint here in India. You've chosen in India to almost grow an organic message as opposed to just running a global campaign.
It was a test. You know, I think as a global marketing organization, we're always confronted with the same dilemma. On the one hand, you know, having global campaigns give you the maximum efficiency and control, I guess. On the other hand, we know that local campaigns are always the most effective, and trying to get that balance and that mix right is one of the things that we, you know, clearly struggle with, and we try to optimize. So we ran a test to see if we really went very, very immersively into a strategic market like India, would that significantly boost the result of the campaign? And the answer clearly is yes in this particular instance, and we're finding that both from an anecdotal but also from a factual perspective, how great this campaign really, really is, and how well it's resonating in the marketplace. And as a result, we're actually taking this learning and we're adapting it to China. So it is something that, again, was a hypothesis. We tested it, we validated it, and as a result, we're now scaling it.
So when you talk about the Indian customer, who is the customer that you're targeting? Is it the volume, low cost, high volume aspect of the market, or is it something far more niche for you?
It's both. I mean, on the one hand, we're targeting business customers, as you know, and Runway to Success is one of the pillars that is doing that particularly well in creating relevance and really adding a value proposition to that set of customers. On the other hand, we're trying to target tourists, and India being a growing market with growing affluence, we're seeing more and more Indians traveling, and the volumes overall of seats in India are going up substantially. And one of the things that we're finding particularly interesting is how many more Indians are now going on their second or maybe their third trip to Europe. And so they've gone to the obvious big capitals, and now they're trying to explore a little bit more of the rest of Europe. And so we're going to be broadening the value proposition to also showcase some of those elements. And we have some techniques, some immersive films that are capable of depicting some of the other destinations in Europe that are incredibly fascinating.
Interesting you say that, because one might say that this is a bit of a wait and watch how the situation unfolds, as well as far as the geopolitical concerns are there, especially when it comes to Europe and what we are witnessing. So as a group, as an airline, how are you sort of bracing yourself or reacting to the changes that we are seeing unfold with regards to the European market?
So we're not taking an active political stance, but having said that, one of the benefits of having a large network is that we also fly to a lot of destinations. And whilst there might be issues in a particular destination, perhaps, we offer so many different places to which people can fly that I hope that they will find enough reasons to continue flying with us. And as you also know, we've talked about this, the geopolitical situation, I think, has been blown out of proportion quite a bit from a media perspective over the last several months. In so many ways, we're living in a safer world, in a more stable world than we've ever been able to witness or any generation before us. And so whilst there are punctual issues, I think the overall world is in a really, really good place right now. And so I think, people are safe to travel.
Absolutely. In fact, and Indians are hardy travelers. In fact, I was just reading that despite the recent turmoil, the number of tourists traveling to Europe has actually increased from our market. But again, going back now to the competition, and how much is Lufthansa really looking at investing, and how aggressive are you prepared to be when you see some of the competition, both the homegrown competitors who are looking to grab a larger share of the market, and of course the Middle East players who are really amping up, so to speak, their focus on our market?
Yeah. So we're really happy to see the numbers in India solidifying. We see that, because there's so many people traveling, because there's a large degree of affluence, that there is a lot of potential still in the marketplace, and there are a lot of different types of travelers with a lot of different needs, and we feel like we have a value proposition that is very, very robust to be able to address a substantial amount of the marketplace. And so we're going to continue doing that. But the marketplace is not going to become easier, right? I mean, there's going to be more volume dropped into the marketplace. There are going to be more players, and so we're going to have to continue really, really working hard to maintain our positioning and maintain the successful business model that we have in India.
So do you see yourself in that sense, as far as your campaign is concerned, sort of dividing yourself between the lower cost end of the market vis-a-vis the high-end traveler? Do you see your focus sort of splitting? Has it always been that that way as far as
we've always had to do both. I think an airplane is a large entity, and we have a lot of different types of seats in that, and they address different needs and different budgets. And so we need to make sure that we're as compelling to each one of those target audiences, or more compelling than a competitor at least. And that's going to be a continued effort.
Right. As far as the Indian market is concerned, you just mentioned China. Now, India is seen to be one of the fastest growing markets, including for the airline industry as well, both in the domestic market as well as the international outgoing market. Any plans as far as Lufthansa is concerned to target the domestic market?
So we've established a platform, as you know, that complements the hub and spoke model that we have with the big airlines, Lufthansa, Swiss and Austrian, by having established the Eurowings brand. And the Eurowings brand is positioned to help in the point-to-point traffic, which has become one of the biggest growth areas, obviously, of the airline category. And so within that, we're building a platform that is going to allow a variety of brands to operate in a very, very efficient way, but higher value than some of the low-cost players that we're seeing right now. Now, the focus of that for now has been Europe, with some intercontinental travel that also is going to get covered by Eurowings. And we're going to have to see where all that platform is going to go, but it is specifically designed to hold a number of different value propositions underneath it. I'm not saying anything about India specifically,
right.
But there's no reason why that shouldn't at some point in time also come into play.
When you come to India, again, as we said, it's one of the fastest growing markets. How do you see the infrastructure in terms of the facilities which are available here? We've had some new airports coming up, both within the metros as well as the smaller cities. Do you see Lufthansa, for instance, flying to some other destinations beyond the key metros that you're currently catering to?
We don't have any concrete plans right now. I think, as I described earlier, we're really happy to see how we have solidified the business for the existing destinations. And that has worked really, really well for us. And so, within that model, we're going to probably continue serving those. And then I'm not sure what's going to happen 2 years from now. Nobody's sure about what's going to happen 2 years from now. But the focus really right now is to, in this incredibly competitive marketplace, solidify our position and continue making this a profitable destination for us.
Alexander, as I was just going through your industry experience and having had the pleasure of interacting with you. You've moved from across many industries.
Yeah.
In that sense, has airlines been the most challenging, or would you say the most How would you view your current experience as far as working in the airline industry is concerned compared to, say, a Facebook or even the IT space?
I think it's the most fascinating in a way, because I think it's so closely or so directly touches on something that enriches people's lives, you know, and travel-related stories are such an incredibly important part of our lives, and how we want to see ourselves and how we want to grow. And so being able to participate in that and tap into that and try to enhance that has been a fantastic personal experience for me as well. It's also the most complex business model in so many ways. There's just so many interdependencies between so many small parts that make an airline operation function at the end of the day. And it's become so competitive, and it's evolving so quickly. And so it's been an intellectual challenge like few others that I've had professionally before, which is fantastic, right? And marketing in this category is changing a lot, and the opportunity to create and generate value and monetize it at different points, I think, is at the forefront of where marketing is going to go in the future. So,
because you've had some key challenges as well in terms of the public's perception.
Sure.
Again, from a marketing perspective, that's something you've been able to regain the customer's trust, and something that other airlines have also faced on account of various controversies or accidents which have happened. Was that, what were the learnings from that phase that you went through?
I think that, the learning in general, irrespective of some of these concrete kind of instances, is I think that marketing as a whole has had to learn to be authentic and compelling at the same time, and being that in a very empathic kind of way. And so I think we've tried to do our best job of genuinely understanding consumer needs and contextually delivering added value to them. And not just being cute, not just being funny, not just being entertaining, but to acknowledge that across the journey, there's so many times that there are specific needs that we can address, where we can either enhance the fantastic nature of the trip, or we can eradicate some of the friction points. And that joy of use that we're trying to engender, which is not just a marketing proposition, but obviously product plays a role in that. That is actually becoming the new way in which brands are actually becoming relevant. And so that has been the most fascinating kind of development, and doing so on the basis of truth. This is making sure that there are product truths, that there are service truths that are underpinning anything that you're doing from a marketing perspective.
Talking about the Indian market and really just South Asia per se, what are the kind of investments that Lufthansa is looking at in terms of whether it's new in-flight services or even in terms of new aircrafts that you're planning to bring in?
So we're excited, obviously, that we're going to be providing a new service with the A350 from Munich to Delhi starting next year, which is going to be the inaugural kind of like service of that new aircraft, which is the newest, the most exciting kind of technology that we're going to have in the marketplace. So obviously that also showcases the significance that the marketplace has to us. On the other side, we're also making more investments, if you will, by flying our Eurowings fleet into more spaces into South Asia. So Bangkok is one of the places that we're servicing with Eurowings, because we feel like there is a particular market segment that we can address with that. So we're going to continue watching the opportunities that exist in the marketplace and finding hopefully the best competitive solutions.
One of the key campaign that Lufthansa has been running is Non-Stop You, and of course the Indianness of the airline. And if one looks at some of the global carriers, and I'm talking about some of your Middle East counterparts who are running their campaigns, they've chosen instead to use big Hollywood stars and really bring out that aspect. One would say that there's a clear divergence in the two campaigns. Which customer were you listening to when you came out with your idea with this campaign?
I think we've been listening to customers all the time, and I think one of the benefits of having been in the marketplace for such a long time is that we have so much interaction, with Indians, and we have, I think, cultivated a really, really good discourse, and so we get ongoing feedback. We don't just have to go out and ask them; we actually get that feedback from them organically anyway. And so, one of my mantras as a marketeer perhaps is that innovation and/or good marketing starts with empathy, and so we're trying to find the most relatable kind of storylines also that will address some of the latent needs that consumers have, or some of the wishes and some of the desires. And so for us, having a Hollywood star doesn't necessarily enhance that, particularly because it doesn't necessarily engender more closeness.
Right.
We want to depict much more closeness, much more authenticity. And so the storylines that we're trying to tell are actually the type of storylines that I think people can imagine experiencing themselves on a journey. Not
Very
necessarily in that exact way, but certainly in a very similar way.
Absolutely, and that empathy and closeness comes out in that lovely advertisement that you have. But when you look at that campaign, again, as you said, it brings out the empathy factor so beautifully, as opposed to, say, the common perception is that the Indian traveler is fairly price sensitive, and that's something that a lot of the other brands appear to be targeting and focusing on.
Yeah.
But not something that Lufthansa has been bringing out. Again, was it something that the customer reached out to you and that you heard that made you sort of sidestep that aspect?
Well, every customer is price sensitive. You know, in every category, I'm price sensitive in just about every category that I enter as well. What I'm looking for is the most compelling overall value proposition that somebody can afford me. And so that's what brands are also supposed to help do. Brands are supposed to give you, if you will, an unfair advantage over the competition in a very price sensitive environment. And so in our case, the fortuitous kind of background is that we have been here for such a long time, that we have the credibility, that we have the demonstrated ability to provide something that we think nobody else can provide in that same level. So we have an overall service, an overall offering on board, but also the trust that we think has had customers keep coming back to us in this very price-sensitive environment.
And what more are you planning to do in order to seek out, reach out, and hold on to the Indian customer in this competitive environment?
We're just going to continue doing these things, and they're going to take on slightly different manifestations over time, but the fact that we have Indian crew on board, that we have Indian food on board, that we have Indian entertainment on board, all of those things are just the pillars upon which we're going to continue building the overall value proposition, and it's going to iterate and become better and better over time.
And again, your focus on the small and medium enterprises and the players therein, the customers therein. You've been fairly laser focused on this part of the market, even during times when the SME industry per se was struggling. You continue to retain your focus because you felt that this was a market that still had potential, that still has potential?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, we're talking about difficult times and complex times, and that's the time at which entrepreneurs do the best, you know, in aggregate anyway, because entrepreneurs are exactly about overcoming and being agile. And so I think entrepreneurs are going to continue doing fantastically well globally, but particularly in India. I think that the Indian marketplace is in a state where some of the fundamentals are starting to come into place that are really allowing for entrepreneurs to become that much more successful. There is bigger political awareness, there is bigger social recognition for entrepreneurs. So many things that are going to help them boost kind of like their significance are in place already. So adverse times or not, I don't think that entrepreneurial spirit is going to get dampened, on the contrary, perhaps.
Well, absolutely, one hopes so, and RTS is clearly testimony to that fact of how we are seeing that entrepreneurial spirit. But the SME focus, is it something that you've seen, or rather that you've focused on particularly in Asia or in India per se, or has it been part of your focus as far as your global strategy is concerned?
It is part of the global sales strategy. It's a bigger part of the global of the marketing strategy here in India than it is other places, because the Indian marketplace exhibits this phenomenon right now. We were talking about the fact that, you know, over the last 4 years or 5 years, it has just taken off and it's become this massive force, and there's cultural awareness for it. And so there's so many things that lead us to believe that it's going to continue to be a really important part and a growing part of the success of India, that we're committed to staying with it.
Right. And what about the entrepreneur in Alexander Schlaubitz? Do you see it rearing its head anytime soon, or will you be flying along this course for a while?
So I consider myself an entrepreneur. So I'm an entrepreneur within a large corporation. I'm trying to make and effect change within a large corporation.
Is that an original term?
I think I've heard it somewhere else before.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I love that challenge. I love the opportunity to be part of something that affects so many people's lives, that is so relevant to so many people, and trying to make it better, make it more agile and more responsive.
And we look forward to many more such journeys with Lufthansa and with yourself. Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. That brings us to the end of this special interview with Alexander Schlaubitz, discussing Lufthansa's strategy and its focus and its understanding of the Indian customer. Many thanks for watching.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.